Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sam Juarez, and I am the Ireland Program Director. I'm joined today by students that are currently in Dublin and in Galway. And so we have a set of questions for them to answer about their time in Ireland thus far, but we will have an opportunity for you all to ask some questions. You are welcome to use the chat or you can unmute yourself. But we do have a list of questions just to kind of get them started off. And so the first question that we have for our students, I'm trying to think of an order. Honestly, just unmute yourself and we can just kind of answer that way. But can you introduce yourselves and share your major and why you decided to study abroad, whether you're in Dublin or in Galway?
I'll go first.
Thanks, Gwen.
My name is Gwen. I actually finished. I was a 2021 graduate, so I'm currently doing a master's degree. But my major while at Notre Dame was neuroscience and behavior. And I actually studied abroad at Trinity College in Ireland when I was an undergrad. So that was in 2019 before the pandemic hit. And I chose to study there. I have a lot of Irish heritage in my family. I had heard a lot of really wonderful things about the Ireland program, all of which I will say lived up to be true, actually blew my expectations away. But that was kind of what really led me to it. And then why am I back now for the master's program? Because I really, really loved my experience and I was looking for a way to come back. And the program that I'm doing now, which is a master in diagnostics and precision medicine, really aligned with my interests. So it was just kind of the perfect fit.
I can go next. Hi. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Hannah. I am currently studying abroad right now in Dublin. I go to Trinity at this point. This is Maura.
Hi, I also am at Trinity in Dublin right now.
This is our first independent travel weekend, so we're actually not in Dublin right now, which is why we're sharing a screen. But I chose Trinity and Dublin just because it aligned well with like the courses I wanted to take. My major, I'm an econ and international development major, and just Trinity College is a really great school and it's lived up to my expectations so far. So
and I picked Dublin and Trinity specifically because one of my RAs had done the same program, and she always had wonderful things to say about the community that was built in the Dublin program. And one reason I might have been nervous to study abroad was to lose the community that I felt at Notre Dame. But for her to emphasize that it was still there, just with new people and in a different space, made me excited to take part in this. So. And I'm also an economics major and poverty studies minor.
I can go next. So my name is Liana Bigot. I'm majoring in neuroscience and behavior at Notre Dame on a pre-med track. And I have minors in poverty studies and compassionate care and medicine. I'm also at the Galway program in Ireland. One of the reasons that I chose the Galway program is the abundant volunteer opportunities. There's a big opportunity with Alive to really work in the community. And that's something that I really want to continue while I was studying abroad. I really love volunteering and really like being integrated in the community. But also the Galway program also offers a lot of field trips like every other weekend to really learn more about the Irish culture and really be integrated. So we went to like the Cliffs of Moher. We were going to the Aran Islands in a couple of weeks. So there's really a chance to learn about the landscape and really be a part of the Irish culture.
I'll jump in. So similarly to Gwen, I studied abroad. My name's Ryan McNeilis, by the way. But I studied abroad in Ireland in the fall of 2019, in the same semester as Gwen. I was also at Trinity College. And like Gwen, I am back in Ireland. I am working this year as the campus minister at O'Connell House, Notre Dame's kind of headquarters out here in Dublin. So I enjoyed the program so much that they sucked me back in for another year. But why I decided to study abroad in Dublin and at Trinity I think something that really stood out to me, even when I was applying for the program, is how committed the Dublin programs and all the Ireland programs are to making sure you have a full experience of Irish culture, not just the city you're in, but really dedicating time to get to know the country as a whole, its history, and what matters in trying to understand Ireland as it exists today. So I really grateful for that. And through a lot of the same kind of field trips that Liana mentioned, felt I really got a feel for the country as a whole that I might not have gotten, if I was doing some sort of other program. I really enjoyed it.
All right, now I'll go. My name is Bianca, and I'm a junior neuroscience major, like Liana, and I have a minor in Catholic social tradition. So I decided to go to Ireland for study abroad because of a lot of the reasons that Ryan mentioned about Ireland just being a very not traditional, but every single place that you go to in Ireland is just so steeped in culture. And, people here speak the local language, Gaelic, and everywhere you go, you can kind of feel the history of Ireland all around you. So I really wanted to be in a space where I could get to really experience that country's culture, whether it's in a small city like Galway or in a bigger city like Dublin. And you really get to feel what it's like, being in Ireland. And I personally, NUIG just fit a lot with my academic interests. I get to do research abroad. One of the reasons I was skeptical about studying abroad in the first place was leaving my research lab at Notre Dame, but Ireland has given me the chance to kind of continue that even abroad. So academically lined up with my interests very well. And also culturally, I knew that Ireland would be a very enriching experience. And there's a lot of natural landscape for me to explore here as well that I wouldn't get in other countries like, London or something. So I'm very much enjoying this program so far. And just an amazing overall program.
Great. Thank you all. I'm not missing anyone else, am I? Okay, wonderful. So I'm wondering if a few of you could talk a little bit about what you did to prepare for the program. So I'm thinking more so along the lines of if you had any concerns about COVID, and if so, what were they? What were those concerns, and just kind of how you were able to work through that? And now that you're there, what has the impact been?
I guess I can start. I think I was really just not even sure if it was going to happen until we got here. I met up with some kids at the airport right before we took off, and we were like, I still don't believe that we're actually going to get there with COVID. So emotionally preparing to go was kind of challenging just because we really didn't know if we were going to get there or not. And so just I think that aspect was difficult. But now being here, obviously that isn't a worry. I think I was also nervous about not being, if Dublin went back into another lockdown, not being able to meet people or leave. And obviously that's still a concern. They can go back into lockdown at any time. But being here and having Robert, who is literally a godsend and tells you everything you need to know, and I don't even know where I would be without him. Having him makes me so much more comfortable if anything were to happen with COVID. If all of my classes were to go online and I had to quarantine my room or something like that, I feel a lot of assurance that the O'Connell House staff would be there to support me and guide me through it. And if I were to get sick, they would help me get the tests and the doctors I need. So having that support with the Notre Dame staff here is making the transition with COVID so much easier than I was expecting. So that's been a really great aspect.
That's great. Well, if no one else has anything to add about that, I think, I'm really glad that you pointed out how the big concern was if it was even going to happen. And now that you're there, you're finding that, the staff is able to kind of explain any changes that need to be made or anything like that. So that's really helpful. Thank you. I think as the situation evolves and as we are made aware of new policies and just new information, that will be shared with students as soon as possible. But it is something that we do ask students just in general to be patient with, because it really is evolving. For a while, it seemed like day to day, and now it's kind of like weeks at a time, months at a time. But that's really great to hear. So I'm wondering if you all could tell us about your transition to actually arriving. So what did your on-site orientation look like? Is it still happening? Is it over? What activities or meetings did it consist of in terms of the information that you were learning? Just so that students don't think you get on a plane, you land, and you move in and boom, classes start. Like, paint a picture for us in terms of what that transition was actually like.
I can go. I can talk about kind of like NUIG's system. So when we landed, it was all kind of like, honestly, kind of a mess at first because we didn't really know what we were doing. We landed, we moved in, and we didn't really get any information about academics until a little while after, which is something that you'll learn with like Irish universities are kind of very quick to give you information and just kind of like expect you to do it the next day, which is kind of like a learning curve. But definitely not a bad thing. So our orientation was basically just a hour-long Zoom call with the director of, I think he was like director of international students at NUIG, who kind of explained to us the registration process. And then from there, you can like ask him any questions, and you have like 2 or 3 weeks to register for classes, and you get to try out the classes that you want, see if they fit with your schedule, see if you actually like them. And then after that, you kind of have time to figure out your registration. So even though it was a little hectic and stressful at first, people like Zoe or Robert, your program coordinators are here to help you and kind of like lead you through the process as well. So it might be a little bit scary at first, but I thought that, all of us handled it with flying colors personally. And again, it is a bit of a learning curve, but definitely not something that you should be afraid of.
Yeah, I'll just follow up with that and say, like, the biggest thing for me when I first landed for study abroad, like the hardest thing to learn was just the fact that they are slower to give you your schedules, to get those things in order. And that's totally normal. Like, that's just how the Irish system works. So it's not like you're somehow behind or something. That's just the way things are. Don't sweat it. But aside from that, like, the arrival process was really, really, really easy. Like, I just showed up, I landed, Robert met us at the airport. And then from there, like, O'Connell House and the whole Dublin like team really took over. They managed what we were going to be doing for all of orientation week. They kept us so busy that I didn't even have time to think about like being homesick or worrying about like what things were like back home or how I would adapt to life in Dublin. They really kind of like throw you in head first, which I thought was absolutely fantastic, because from day one, I was getting an orientation of the area. I was meeting other people in the program. I had an understanding of the campus I was on and kind of where I was in relation to other things around me. And they really laid out like resources and help. So like any nervousness that I had was immediately disappeared once I landed, just because they really took care of everything. And then once you're kind of settled, then they'll help you to like settle in down. But from day one, they really like make you feel at home and keep you busy and oriented.
Great, thank you all. I think you touched on something really important in terms of the way that other universities function in terms of communication with students and registering for classes. Like the fact that you have a 3-week kind of trial period is pretty cool. And so I think for students, that does tend to be something that kind of catches them off guard. But I hope that students realize like you are directly enrolled into this Irish university that has its own way of doing things and has been doing it for so long, and that's okay. We have staff there to kind of help you through that. So thanks for kind of highlighting that. But going off of the same kind of sentiment, I'm wondering if you all could talk a little bit about what your classes have been like thus far and any differences that you have felt in terms of the academic components or even research for those of you that are doing that.
Yeah, I can talk about it. I feel like in terms of like comparison between like Notre Dame and like in terms of like the Galway or Irish programs, you got a lot of more free time. Usually classes are, because of COVID, it's like 45 minutes and they're like once or twice a week. So you're really not spending a lot of time in classes. And also you take usually you take like a reduced course load of 15 credits. So for example, I'm doing a 3-credit research, cancer research class, and then I'm taking one science class in human physiology. And then there's a required English class for the Galway program that really helped to get immersed in Irish culture. And then I'm taking history and philosophy. So just really a reduced course. So you really have more time to like go inside of the city and really like immerse yourself in Irish culture and really get to know the landscape and the people around.
I would
I
also
think I can
add.
talk. Go ahead.
Go
Jen.
ahead, Brian.
I'll take it. I think to echo Liana, I think it is, having been on both the side of experiencing kind of the shift in pace when I came out for my study abroad semester, and watching current students out here in Dublin like Hannah and Mara go through it. It is a bit of a culture shock moment, especially from a place like Notre Dame, where the pace is very regiment. Continuous assessment is a big thing. You're constantly preparing for the next test or getting the next paper ready. The pace at Irish universities is just very different. A lot of your graded work for the semester is backloaded. You might have finals at the end that account for much more grade than they would at Notre Dame. So kind of adjusting to the fact that a lot more of the work is going to be independent and on my own, that I won't be spending as much time doing, regimented, graded homework every night. That is a shift. And I think in the same way that Gwen kind of mentioned, that the Notre Dame staff, a large part of their job is just assuring people like this is simply the way it works. You're not doing anything wrong. It's just a different pace. And that's part of the adjustment and the experience. And I think once people, certainly in my experience, once you settle that into that shift in pace, it is a real opportunity to be able, like Liana said, to go out to experience, what the culture has to offer, and see a lot of the really incredible place that you're in when you're studying in Ireland.
I'll just add one specific thing about a class that Hannah and I are both taking, Christology at Trinity. And it has been really unique to go to school for a little bit in an urban area, because we walk every week. Like one of our lectures takes place in the National Gallery of Ireland. And we work in like small groups to kind of connect that to whatever readings we had. So it's just been a unique experience to go to school in like an urban area and be able to like use that to our benefit and have a very unique, lecture style and group work style in that class. And it's been something I've really enjoyed.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. I do think that I hope to just like normalize to students that it is going to be different and that's okay and that you will get through it. And obviously, if you ever needed assistance, we have wonderful on-site staff members who could kind of help to talk you through it and maybe even share some tips or, ways that other students have adjusted. So kind of going off the same token in terms of differences that you all have found there. Can you talk about your housing and your meals and just kind of what that's been like for you all?
Yeah, I could talk about the Galway program. So for the Galway program, we lived in Goldcrest, which is like a 15-minute walk from like the main campus area. So we get our own bedroom and our own bathroom. We just share our living space with your flatmates. And also because of COVID, the Notre Dame students, there's 10 people in the Galway program. So we have 5 in each flat, but they're actually really, really nice. I'm really impressed by it. You could see from Bianca, that's kind of our like living area. It looks really nice. And it's a really nice place to live. What was the other part of your question, Sam? Sorry.
If you could talk about meals and what you all do for that.
Yeah, so usually for meals, you're like required to like for the Galway program to like cook your own meals. So usually we walk to the local grocery store, which is only about a 15 to 20-minute walk. And it's really cheap. There's Aldi's, there's like Dunn's, there's very convenient grocery stores. And we just usually for me, like I meal prep each week, but really affordable places to really find your meals. And also like we have a kitchen facility, so it's very easy to cook your own meals here. Yeah.
And then in Trinity, the housing is a pretty similar setup. I think all of the Notre Dame students, though, live on campus. We all have sort of different housing setup, but we're all sort of within the like walled off vicinity of the Trinity campus. And then I'm not sure about the other Dublin ones, but I think they all live either right on or close to campus as well. So that's really convenient. At Trinity, I have my own room and my own bathroom, and then a shared kitchen for my entire building, which is a really small building. So that's been nice to meet other Irish and international students because I'm not just with Notre Dame students. But you live somewhere else. I don't know if it's.
Yeah, I also live like in a similar setup, and I would agree one of the best parts is having roommates from like other countries. I have roommates from the Czech Republic, from Italy, Ireland, and then another girl from the US. So it's a great mix, and we all, get to hang out in our kitchen and shared living space. So I've really enjoyed that part of it.
That's great. Thanks. So right now for housing, so with every program, students will live on campus, and Galway was different this year in that you all will live in the same, maybe 2 or 3 apartments. But typically the standard is that you would be kind of mixed in with other Irish students, other international students. It really is going to be dependent on the COVID situation, but then also just what the host university can offer in terms of access to rooms. Thank you all for sharing that. So I'm wondering if you could tell us about the COVID protocols that are in place that you've had to adapt to, either with being in Dublin or in Galway or at your host university or in your housing. And has that been challenging to adapt to? Yeah.
Yeah, so the vaccine rollout in Ireland has been a bit slower than in the US. So here, a lot of the restrictions are still in place. Like we still have to wear masks on campus, in the classroom. Social distancing is still enforced in a lot of like the restaurants, as well as everywhere on campus and in public places. And pretty much to get into anywhere, you have to show that you're vaccinated to eat indoors. Usually if it's outdoors, it's fine, but you do need to kind of carry a picture of your COVID vaccination record or your actual record and be able to show that to every single place you go to. So it's definitely much more enforced here than it is in the US, especially compared to Notre Dame, where it seems to have like gone back to normal. So that's something to keep in mind. Obviously, it might change when like you guys study abroad, if you're thinking of studying abroad. But as of right now, again, it's very still kind of restricted. Things are opening up a little bit more, but much more restricted than in the US.
I would add to that in Dublin, it has been cool to watch, even in the about a month since I've been here. You can definitely start to feel, even with a lot of those restrictions with the mask wearing indoors in place, it's definitely been cool to see the city kind of come back to life and get its gears turning, even over the short period of time that I've been here. O'Connell House sits on this beautiful civic park called Marion Square. And it's fun to watch. Just out the window most days, there's always people out in the park. I know on Thursdays, thank you, Robert, gorgeous. But on Thursdays, there is a food market that comes into Marion Square, and it's all kind of street food type vendors who just, I'm trying to think, I had a steak sandwich last time I went. That was absolutely killer. But stuff like that is very much coming back, right along with kind of the rest of of social life that Dublin especially is really known for, and Galway the same way. I'm sure everyone else can add to that, but it's been a cool experience, and you can kind of feel the energy coming back to the city, even while that COVID presence is very real and present.
Great, thank you. Is there anything else that anyone wants to add about that? I saw in the chat that Bianca added live music has also been coming back, which is great. Wonderful. So my second to last question is, if you have found anything surprising or anything that has been particularly challenging for you all since you've been abroad, or any adjustments that you've had to make that you didn't anticipate, really any challenges. It's okay if there are none either.
You're also all allowed to say that something didn't work. We will not hold it against you if something is terrible. So
Yeah.
I'll plug my ears if I have to.
Well, I'm even thinking like the academics, right? Like if that was a big change for you, having to cook your own meals. I know that can be an adjustment for some. Sorry, Gwen, go for it.
Okay, I guess I'll say for me, the biggest thing again was kind of the academic side, like not being able to pre-plan before I landed what classes I would be taking was definitely stressful. And then when I showed up, actually, which was very unfortunate just for my year, probably won't happen again. But a lot of the classes they told us would be available ended up not being offered. So then we were running around trying to find classes that would fit certain Notre Dame requirements. And you know what? It always works out in the end. So like it was like a week of kind of like chaos, and I was stressed, and I was like, oh my gosh, I flew all the way over here, and like I'm not going to get these classes I need. I'm never going to graduate on time. Well, I graduated early actually, and it all worked out. I got all the classes I needed, so it will be fine. But the adjustment is definitely just like being able to be flexible and realize that you might not have a perfect plan laid out before you land, but again, like it works out, and Notre Dame does such a good job of making sure that you get whatever you need to graduate, and it will be fine, and you'll have all the courses you need. And so just like, don't worry about it.
For me, I guess I was worried about the academics and often also having to cook for myself. On the academic side, I was a little bit like worried about like finding all the like necessary classes and everything. And I was also like scared about having, registering for classes like the day that I start school. So that was like a little worrisome. I was sure like, but it was kind of like nice in a way. I'm just like a type A person. I like need to have everything like written down and everything. So, but it was really nice being able to like view classes before I registered them for them. So I got it to see if I like, psychology, or if I like this class, and I could, take or see as many classes as I wanted to, and just decide from there on out if I really wanted to register for the class. In terms of cooking, I never cooked for myself, and I've really never been into a grocery store by myself. So like the first time Zoe took us to the grocery store, I kind of like froze, and I was like, okay, now I have to figure out what I eat. And I was like, I really don't know what I eat anymore. So that was a little bit like a culture shock, or like kind of a shock for me, but I kind of like figure out like, wrote down a list of what I needed, and it all turned out to work out.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. I think that those tend to be some of the really common adjustments that we hear from students is if you're used to a dining hall and then all of a sudden you have an apartment, it's like, what do you do and how do you adjust your thinking? And so to me, it's just the sooner you can be aware that that's a shift you'll have to make, the better. So now my last question is, what has been your favorite part about being there so far? Any highlights about the program or really anything, if you can share that.
Yeah, I can go first. So I think that for me, the highlight has just been meeting the people in Galway and the people in Ireland, just like the little moments, because every single person here is incredibly nice, and they will stop you in the street just to talk to you. If they hear like you're an American, they'll like ask you like where you're from. And Irish people all have some sort of connection to America. If I say I'm from Texas, they'll be like, oh, do you know like my cousin who lives in like this town in Texas? It's just like a common Irish thing. And they're all just wonderful people to talk to with the nicest hearts, and they'll like look out for you if you like trip in the street. This like lady asked me if I was okay and like stuck with me for 5 minutes, making sure I like didn't spray anything. This like lady at the gelato place gave me some extra ice cream because I said I liked this flavor and I didn't choose. I chose another one, and it's just those like really random moments of kindness. Like you find them every single day here in Ireland, and that's just because the people here are absolutely amazing. So definitely the highlight has just been getting to be a part of that culture, and I'm really thankful that I am able to live in such a great community like that.
Yeah, I have to reiterate what Bianca says. The people here are really nice. They're always willing to talk to you if you're ever lost. Like like, for example, I was lost on the first day of where my class was, and like 3 girls like helped me find my class. And, the people here just are so willing to be helpful and just have a lot of kindness in their heart. My also another favorite thing since I've been here is like going on those hiking trips that the Galway program offers. I've never been hiking in my whole entire life, so like this was something like completely new for me, and it was just such a great experience to like not only like challenge myself but like see what I can actually do. We've like climbed a lot of like little small like hills and like mountain tops, and it's just been such a great experience for me.
I'll jump on with I hate to just play the same tunes here, but on both of those points, we recently did our first little trip as a program to Glendalough, which is this beautiful valley about 45 minutes outside Dublin that the whole Dublin community took a bus out to, and just this gorgeous hike through this area that's been filled with monasteries and different settlements pretty much continuously since the 600s. So just like strolling through these like incredible like old ruins in the midst of this really cool hike with this big group of Notre Dame students that we're all getting to know together, which is really awesome. And then the people in Ireland are really great, and I think to add to just being surrounded by really friendly people, it's also a friendliness that is really interested in getting to know you, which is, I think, kind of distinct from what we think of as American friendliness. It's small talk happens, but it's never just saying hi for the sake of saying hi. You'll encounter a lot of people who genuinely really want to get to know you, really care what you think. If they're asking you a question about something, it's not just to pass the time. They want to hear what you have to say, and then they want to have a conversation around that, which is just a lot of fun and makes any social encounter just something to look forward to.
Yeah, I'll just add, same as what's said. Last weekend, I actually took a trip to Howth by myself. I got lost hiking, and some random dude started talking to me then he gave me directions, but then he started talking to me for about an hour just about Ireland. And pretty soon we were just like talking about his goat farm, and it was great. So you just like have these random conversations with local people, and it's fantastic. You feel like you're really getting to know the culture. But also I think for me, like I just really loved the Notre Dame friends as well that I made while in Ireland, because they do such a good job of, having different activities or get-togethers, and having some classes that I had with my other fellow Notre Dame students. I made really, really, really strong connections that I was then able to continue when I was back on campus. And actually some of my best friends, and the ones that I still keep in touch with since graduating are really like a good chunk of people that I spent my time studying abroad with. So it's not just, the culture and all of that, and you make connections there, but you also make connections that just like extend your Notre Dame family even farther, that I found to be incredibly valuable.
Great, thank you all. I cannot echo the friendliness enough. When I was in Dublin for the first time many years ago, back when I didn't have a cell phone, I just used like a paper map. Every single time, no doubt, when I would open it, I would have 3 different Irish people ask me if I needed help to find the place that I was. And I had traveled pretty extensively. Like at this point in my life, I've been to over 100 cities, 20 plus countries. never in any other place had people been that friendly and wanting to help me. It was really amazing. I remember because I wrote about it in my journal very distinctly because I had never experienced that kind of warmth in that way ever before. It was really amazing. And so, yes, I love when people mention that because I think it's just so true. So at this point in time, I know that we have a few guests on here. If you all have questions, you can either unmute yourselves or write questions in the chat. You also don't have to if you don't have anything, but certainly thank you all for coming. I appreciate you all taking the time to listen, and for our panelists, being able to share about your experience. I really appreciate it. This is also being recorded, and so it will be posted on the Study Abroad Week website, I think in a week from now. But thank you all. So yeah, feel free to ask questions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So how was it missing out on the fall semester and all the activities on campus? Like, how were you able to handle that?
I'd be happy to take this one. So I was someone, when I applied, I actually applied for the spring semester and ended up coming in the fall, and ended up being very hesitant about even coming out to begin with. The football season is near and dear to my heart. And I really wasn't sure how I felt about missing out on that. And then I was a Gateway student at Notre Dame. So my first year was spent over at Holy Cross. So part of me felt like I only have 6 semesters on campus to begin with. Do I really want to give one of those up, to leave the place I was so excited to get to go somewhere else? So those were very, very real feelings for me. And I think why I enjoyed my semester so much is a lot of the things that I loved about the fall semester and any semester at Notre Dame were things I found in different ways in Dublin. For so many of the football games, we would do, big game watches as a program. And just, especially for the night games, it became kind of like a badge of honor. You've got to fight the time difference. You know what? If it's kicking off at midnight, so be it. I will be up at 3 a.m. cheering them on. I was not joined by everyone in that endeavor, but I had a few brave people who soldiered it out with me. And then,
I was not there.
Yeah, no, okay, Gwen, tomorrow we'll find somewhere to watch. But at the same token, stuff like SYRs and socials. I realized, surrounded by in Dublin, we had close to 60 students with us. We found ways to replicate so many of the things we loved and did miss about campus in new ways. We planned a formal by ourselves as a student, as a cohort, and went out and did that, which was an awesome experience. Even down to, I was a big milkshake mass guy when I was on campus. So established a tradition with anyone who ended up going to the 11 a.m. mass at the Newman Church in Dublin. We would do walkovers to, there's a good donut shop in Dublin called the Rolling Donut that has a €5 coffee and donut deal. So just finding ways to kind of find echoes of the traditions that I loved on campus was really important to me. And then inevitably, the thing that I think a lot of people love about being at Notre Dame is just the community you feel. And that is not something that goes away even a little bit in Ireland. I think you find almost an amplified version of that, which is something I love.
For sure. I would definitely want to reiterate what Ryan said. The Notre Dame series is still very much alive because you're in a Notre Dame cohort with a lot of other people who love Notre Dame, and just, you're all wearing the Notre Dame shirts with pride all around Ireland, on your hikes, on your pictures. And it's just Ryan was saying, we would host game watches, and there's nothing better than doing touchdown push-ups abroad with 10 other people who also just love Notre Dame. And it's just an incredible feeling. And again, there's so many things to do in Ireland too that it's it's nice to have that little piece of home with Notre Dame, but there's also so much stuff keeping you busy and so much stuff to do in Ireland that like it's not really something you think of. Like when you're looking out on like a beautiful field, you're not thinking, "Oh, I wish I was like sitting in my dorm right now with like watching a movie." It's just there's so many other things and that take your mind off of all the things that you miss because you're experiencing so much here. And, you know, all the things that you expect to be great out of study abroad, you get all that and so much more when you're actually here. And, you know, like I do miss my friends, and having that sense of FOMO was something that I really struggled with the summer going into this fall semester. But, you know, once you're actually here, it's not really as bad as you think because there's so much stuff to do. And again, the Notre Dame spirit is still very much with you. Yeah, I would say that don't worry about it. In some ways, the fall semester is a little bit better because the weather is much better here in the fall, is what I've heard. You pretty much just get like 3 constant months of rain in the spring. So fall's a little bit better. You get the Christmas market as well in Ireland, which is, I've heard to be very amazing. So again, a lot of stuff to do in Ireland during the fall that is going to keep you busy and keep your mind off of all the things that you're missing at Notre Dame.
And I just one more tiny piece to add. Having had the experience of going through the semester and then coming back, one really cool experience, I think Gwen did a great job of kind of drawing attention to this earlier, but it's not only the semester that you're missing. I found that my remaining 3 semesters at Notre Dame were made much richer by having studied abroad and by having made the friends that I made during that semester. I think in the same way as Gwen said, like looking around at who I was spending time with, whose families I was meeting during graduation weekend. It was a lot of the people who I met in Dublin. So I think it's not only just weighing, am I going to enjoy my semester in Ireland more than I would a semester at Notre Dame? It's recognizing that this is going to enrich the entirety of my Notre Dame experience. At least it did for me.
I'll just add one quick thing as well. I never got homesick when I was here in Ireland. And it was actually when I was on campus the following semester, like the following fall after we got back, that was the first time I was like homesick. And I wasn't homesick for home. I was literally homesick for Ireland. It was like dreary weather. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just want to be back in Ireland. So personally, I felt like I really didn't miss anything that fall semester. And yes, I was also worried that I would kind of miss that experience. But I really found it to be so much more than I could have ever anticipated. And I would 100% do it again because it was definitely, honestly, the best semester I had with Notre Dame, with some of the best people that I've spent my time there with.
Thank you all for sharing that, because I think that is a really common question and concern that I have is, going in the fall, am I really going to miss out on things on the main campus? And I get it. And so I really appreciate you all sharing your perspective of just the fact that, a lot of those feelings really went away because you're having such an enriching time. We did get a question in the chat about any tips or best practices for the applications. So I will say this year we moved into a new format. And so these students did a personal statement, and now we have 3 short answer questions that can be answered. I think it's like 300 words per question, or you could submit a video. So 1 minute video per question or 1 3-minute video. And so really what I can tell you all in terms of tips is the more authentic you can be as to why you want to go to a certain place, the better. So some tips for that would be, can you do research as to why that particular university is the best fit for you, whether it's academically or any clubs and societies. But I really do think that the more authentic and genuine you can be, the better, instead of, using really generic statements. So like if I could copy and paste your short answer question for one answer and put it to another program with that same question, that same answer, it's not specific enough. And so really just kind of take the time to comb through the websites of the host university and of the Dublin program to see if it's something that is going to be a good fit for you. Let's see. Yeah, Gwen said, be genuine, really focus on why you want to be here, not somewhere else. Yeah, and how it would help you grow as an individual. We did add a question about like, you know, can you tell us about a time that you have been uncomfortable or you have had to exhibit like self-awareness and maturity? That's a really good opportunity to tell us a story about a time that you have been uncomfortable or not, and how you would go about that. And so really the questions are just trying to give you all just more to think about in terms of why you are picking the program that you are picking. And so if you have any more questions about that, you can certainly send me an email. I'll put my name and email in the chat. And I'd be happy to kind of meet with you one-on-one to talk about it. And I will say we also had a study abroad week session. The video will be posted next week as well on the entire application process, so the different components, who you need approvals from. We go more into detail about the questions that are asked and your answers to them. Let me see, did I see another question? Here we go. Okay, would any of you have suggestions? Perfect, yeah. Would any of you have suggestions for how to make the most of your study abroad experience and immerse yourself in the culture of Ireland while managing the adjustment to the new pace of classes, along with challenges of a new school, new people, a new living situation? That's a great question. So if you all want to have at it, go for it.
I can jump on this one first. I think one thing I would say, especially kind of talking to people as we ended our semester, was don't be so eager to travel the rest of Europe and forget about the country that you chose to study abroad in. So I know a lot of people who right from the start had booked every single independent weekend going somewhere. And then by the time that the program ended, they were like, shoot, I didn't see majority of Ireland. I'm going to go back and people are going to ask me about these things and I didn't get there. So I think just make sure you take the time to actually see the country that you're in. There is so much to see in Ireland and it is absolutely beautiful. So don't rush to see other places. You can go out, like see other places later on in your life, but take the semester that you're studying there to really get out and go visit Ireland. And then one other thing I think I'd say, as far as like in more immersing yourself in the immediate and local culture, is one of the things I did a lot when I was at Trinity was just like going out and wandering around the city. I didn't get very far, but just like going out for walks and just like walking in circles to random places. Maybe it was to the store just to buy like one item, but it was just a reason for me to kind of get out, to become more familiar with the area, and to maybe like run into someone on the street or to pop into, there might be local music down a different alley that I'd never been or something. So just kind of like exploring the area in a very easy, accessible way, just by like wandering around.
I'd say one thing for me about getting the most out of my experience was, I think the one thing that really adds to everything you experience is be willing to bring as much of yourself and as much as of your interests to everything you're experiencing as possible. You know, here at O'Connell House, the whole staff really is so well connected and invested in your experience. If you come here and you have an interest, there will be an intersection between that interest and Irish life and Irish society. And someone in Notre Dame out here knows someone in Ireland. It's not that big a place that they can connect you with whoever is doing the thing you care about and doing it in this really, really awesome place. So I think that's huge. And even in terms of the group dynamic and the friends you come away with, I think if you're willing to offer a lot of yourself and your passion, that not only makes your experience so much better, but it's just a joy to everyone else. Like I know during our semester, Gwen was really, really awesome about bringing her nice camera to like every hike and every trip that we did. And like it made the trip for so many people that like when you wanted your really nice picture on this like beautiful cliff overlooking the ocean, it'd be, Gwen, like, can you real quick get one of me? So I think just being willing to bring your passions and share them goes a long, long way. At least it did for me.
Yeah, also another thing I want to mention, and Ryan kind of touched on this, is to like not be afraid to ask for help. Like if you're in Dublin, you have Robert, and then if you're in Galway, you'll have Zoe. So a lot of these things that like we struggled with, like academics, living in like a flat, cooking for yourself, like these are all things that they'll be able to help you with. Sorry, the lights just turned off in here. But just, you know, don't be afraid to ask for help. It is really hard to adjust to those things, but you know, it's again a learning curve, and by like, you know, 2 or 3 weeks in, you're gonna be completely fine. It might seem scary at first, but you know, just try and, this sounds kind of cheesy, but try not to sweat it. Like again, these guys are here to help you in anything that you need. So the earlier that you ask for help, the better. You'll be a couple weeks into the experience. And like Gwen said, just, you know, staying, you know, there's like such a big local culture here in Ireland. Like every city just has like its own very unique culture and traditions. And it is worth the time to just get to know each city that you visit in Ireland. And I'm sure like all of us here like have multiple recommendations for all the places that you can visit in Ireland, like just a nonstop list. So really get to know the place that you live in. And because you have that free time in academics, you know, your classes will really only meet like once or twice a week. And then after that, like, you know, study in a new location, go to a new coffee shop to do some studying, check out the local library instead of staying on the on-campus library, go to new restaurants every week or so, you know, visit the local museum. There's just so many things that you can do if you just go out there and explore and wander around a bit. So I definitely reiterate that stay in Ireland as much as you can, as much as alluring as it is to travel to other countries, because everything is so close. It's just, there's so much to do in Ireland. You won't ever get sick of it. And, you know, these two went back after their study abroad, so they can tell you how not sick of Ireland you'll be after your study abroad experience.
Yeah, thank you all. So I will say there are these national organizations that will do research and surveys to students who have come back from being abroad. The number one regret always, like, it's like 90%, while all the other things are like at 10% or less. The number one regret is not having spent enough time in the host country. Hands down, that I think students are really eager to travel, which of course is a really wonderful part of the study abroad experience, but the number one regret always is not having spent enough time in the location that you are studying abroad at. And so thank you for reemphasizing that, because it does tend to be something that comes up in those surveys time and time again as just something that students really didn't plan for and didn't think too much about. And so those of you watching, you know, now you know. Well, thank you all for being here today. I really appreciate it. Feel free to email us or ask questions, but really your best resource to start is going to be the website. Poke through it, learn about the programs. Thank you all for your time. Happy Friday, happy Study Abroad Week. Have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.